Hi all, I'm Hardie K and I welcome you to the next installment of my new YouTube channel called Hypertravel with Hardie K, about all the trips I've taken in the last 17, 18, 20 years, starting with the year 2008. Unlike most of this series, this episode will be a combination of two chapters in the original Hypertravel book, chapters 2 and 9, both of which dealt with the Caribbean islands and a couple of South American coastal countries to boot. We'll even cover Cuba, which wasn't in the original book simply because it was technically illegal for an American to visit, so you know. Are you ready? Let's go to the Caribbean. First stop, Jamaica. From my home base in Los Angeles, I went straight to Jamaica, which would be the base for further travel throughout the region, convenient for its central location and ability to easily come and go. A very convenient way to see a region, like hub and spoke, where point-to-point travel is not always possible nor desirable. I quickly realized that Kingston wasn't very appealing to me, so Montego Bay filled the bill nicely. I was even able to get my visa for Cuba there, which was central to my planning. In fact, that's the only place I went in Jamaica, though I didn't really plan it that way. I guess I'm just lazy like that. But no other place had the international airport that I needed. And Montego Bay is nice also, once you get the hang of it. The Margaritaville Strip for the coolest digs, and Mo Bay proper for city excursions and anything resembling a grocery store. I can't eat in restaurants constantly. The next stop is Trinidad. The whole trip consisted basically of two trips. One island hopping to South America and back, and another to Cuba, with two other double stops in Trinidad and Barbados along the way. Liat Airlines was the workhorse airline for those trips and may very well be even today. I'm not sure. But I was in a hurry to make some tracks and check off some miles, so I made only a quick stop in Barbados to connect to Liat for Trinidad. Because there I had to get another visa for Suriname, so I didn't want to get caught waiting on a weekend. Trinidad's nice too, with probably the least African population of the region, but possibly the most pride in it. Not surprising when you think about it, because there's a heavy Indian population in all the region. But that's especially true here. The food is killer too, with the Indian equivalent of Mexican tacos coming off the hot griddle about 2 per minute by some guy who looks like nothing more nor less than a DJ of roti dobles. They'll melt in your mouth, guaranteed. This was all during the weekend holidays too, so the mood was festive. Once I got my Suriname visa, I was off to the Guianas. First stop, Guyana proper, that is British Guiana, and the capital of Georgetown. Given that the whole area seemed a little sketchy, I got a halfway decent place to wait out the holidays and my ongoing trip to Suriname. It wasn't quite as easy as I hoped, but at least I got to experience some genuine British Caribbean colonialism. Very African and maybe a little bit dangerous. Be careful in the marketplace. I hoped to beat the Christmas rush to Suriname, but only got as far as Riverton. That's okay, since they knew how to party and the place boogied all night long. It's rainy, but I don't care. I'll survive. The next day, Suriname was a little bit better. What with its talkie-talkie Shanantongo language and a cast of characters that rival anyone's overseas empire. In this case, it's mostly Javanese from the Dutch East Indies, with Indians and Africans to boot, and Chinese running the businesses when others fall short. So I study up on Dutch for a few days and prepare for New Year's Day, even moving downtown for a little run around. Did I mention that colonial Suriname looks a lot like the antebellum southern U.S.? Just throw away the Spanish moss and stately front lawns, park on the street from dusk until dawn. So yes, Paramaribo is a quite cute traveler's discovery, perched on the South American coast like some southern belle awaiting her suitor. But, like many a southern belle, she's got her moods too, and the exit was no bed of roses. French Guiana was out of the question, too far, and the air in the interior was not much better, too rough. But the music was good and the food was not bad, though the Wi-Fi was hard to find and my Dutch language would always be bad, at best. So all good things must come to an end, but that was the hardest part, of course. I tried to leave the same way I came, in reverse order, but the road was under construction and the river ferry doesn't always run, especially on holidays. New Nickery doesn't win too many awards as a travel destination either, so I beat a hasty retreat to Paramaribo, where I caught a flight straight out to Barbados. Guyana be damned. Trinidad, in transit only, last minute rates at $300. But still better than being somewhere I no longer want to be. So I go back to Barbados, where I only spent one day before. Barbados is classic Caribbean too. Very British and very African. With a stiff upper lip and all that rap. There's only one problem. It ain't cheap, but I'm okay if I can cook at home. And Bridgetown is okay as long as I can walk it alone. Taxis add to the price quickly and decisively. And my flight is glitched again through no fault of my own. I only reconfirmed the flight by accident, passing by the office, and I found out then that my original flight was canceled, and so I'd be leaving a day earlier, hopefully, since the immigration only gave me a day to stay when I wanted 4. So hopefully the 2-day overstay will raise no hackles, since this airline probably does this crap all the time. Turns out it's no sweat. The natives are friendly. So I get back to Jamaica ahead of schedule. So I'm back in Jamaica with time to kill, enough to get ready for the trip's biggest thrill, Cuba. Communist with no apologies in the year 2009, though the United States will be none the wiser, because the visa won't go into the passport, just on a separate slip of paper, enough to satisfy immigration in Havana without pissing off immigration in LA. Last but not least is Cuba. No problem, Havana does not disappoint. Immigration pulls me aside, of course, just like they'll do later in Iran on the budget plan. Not to mention North Korea and China sometimes. But the immigration officers are just as surprised as anyone else to see that I can actually speak Spanish, which seems like it actually helped, somehow, some way, in my entry, as well it should, in my humble opinion. And Havana is actually exactly the way you and I imagine it too, with 50-era Chevys maintaining their tourist levies by providing transport to and from airports, mostly, since I can't imagine driving around town in one, though that would be nice. It's quite ironic to be riding in an American car also, when they probably could have made an easy transition to Russian Ladas long ago. I wonder if they made the switch to Chinese vehicles now. Where would they get the money to pay for them? The trick to getting the chill deals in Havana was to use the local currency. Totally legal, if seldom used by tourists, but I'm not sure why, other than the fact that it's not convertible. Neither are the cars they drive either. So use it until you lose it. The main deal is that espresso will cost you a nickel with local currency and a half-hour wait. With the US dollar, you can get it immediately and a place to sit. Tourists in Cuba have their own buses too. Probably a good idea, since the locals' rigs probably break down frequently. Tourists were free to travel, though, and without the minders ubiquitous in North Korea or even Bhutan. An interesting side note to that era was that East Europeans would travel to Cuba to show their younger friends or children what it used to be like there in the old days. Not many people spoke English, though, I don't think, though that may have changed by now. I traveled to the smaller towns of Trinidad and Santa Clara, and the deal everywhere was that locals wanted to cook you meals for $10 a plate. Ouch! I assumed they were taking convertible currency. The smaller cities were okay, though, and maybe a little bit less affected by governmental posturings. Only big hotels had Wi-Fi, though. At a party where I was staying, a local even asked me once, "What do you need Wi-Fi for?" Don't get me started. I stayed several places in Havana, both public and private, though the private B&Bs were probably more interesting. They would lower a key on a string down to you on the street rather than go the extra mile walking. Those places were always nicer on the inside than the outside, though, in order to maintain the facade of poverty, I think, which is part of the narrative. I could have stayed longer in Cuba, but I checked out after a week or so, given the scarcity of Wi-Fi. People laugh at that, but remember there were no smartphones or 5G then. A digital nomad has got to have digits. When's the last time you passed a week without your smartphone? There's a phrase for that. It's called Buddhist meditation retreat, such as Hypertravel. So thus ended my first extensive foray into the Caribbean, and that's only half of the many countries there, so I knew I'd have to go back. This trip finally got reignited a year and a half later. This was chapter 9 in the original Hypertravel book. This time the trip started in Antigua, pronounced the English way, not Antigua, the Spanish way, though spelled like that and usually mentioned with Barbuda, but not this time. This was one of the finest vacations of my life, too. Something like a kinder, gentler Africa. Much of that honor goes to my guest house host, Ruth, too, who not only picked me up at the airport at no charge, but took me straight to a supermarket to stock up on provisions. Good idea. Even better, her 11-year-old daughter Laura quickly became my fast friend. So upon returning to the big house, we went immediately down to the beach like messengers with a mission, babes in arms. The name of the place is Jabberwock Beach, and it's pretty divine. One big swimming pool, no tides, neither hot nor cold. Next day we go to church in St. John's. The town itself is nothing special, but it's not bad either. I'm a little bit far out to party, but that's okay. I'm a little too old for that anyway. I'll be back. Dominica is probably the closest thing to the real thing in the Caribbean, with the original natives still very close to where they originally were and always have been, with even a reservation to consecrate the holy ground. The problem is that they don't speak the native language anymore, just Spanish. Ironically, the only people who speak the original language are the half-black Garifuna in Belize and Honduras, who came there by way of something not much better than a slave ship. The plural of Garifuna is Galinago. That's what the Dominican natives are called to this day. These natives look a lot like Mexicans, though, hint, hint. Cruise ships pass through to catch some views, and so do I. Next stop is St. Lucia, not Lucia, where I arrive a day late to a Leah airline pilot strike. So I huddled around an ice chest full of ice all day, avoiding the sun and just waiting for the ice to melt and the strike to break. St. Lucia is everything that Dominica is not, fancy and corporate and expensive. 2 days is plenty for me. Grenada is next. Any American over a certain age will recognize Grenada as the Caribbean island that former President Ronald Reagan liberated from the clutches of an evil attempt at socialism, now 40-something years ago. That includes the romantic and classic Caribbean city of St. George and the lesser island of Cariaco, which is also very nice, like the best of both worlds, Hemingway and Faulkner. A ferry runs between the islands, and it's a close tie with Antigua for the chill deal of the Caribbean. Next stop is St. Kitts, and it's pretty nice also. I was playing hide and seek with the Reggae Music Festival there for a while, but I ultimately missed it all. Oh well, there will be others. I go back to Antigua for another stint, and my buddy Laura is not there, but an Australian, Matthew, is, and he's got a car, so that's cool. So we tool around and around. This trip is over almost before it ever really got started, so it's a fitting end and not an endless fit. To do it by cruise ship would be interesting. To do it by sailboat would be sublime. Still, it's over when it's over, and I've now visited 130 countries. So is it worth it to visit the Caribbean? Yes and no. It's not cheap, but often you might get a better deal than you would elsewhere at the same price, and amenities like a kitchen only have real value if you actually use them. Then there's Wi-Fi. People would often laugh at me in those days, or worse, demanding that service, but they all have smartphones now, not burners. Much has been left out of this collection of essays also, since they will be covered better elsewhere by customer circumstance. Most people don't think of Guatemala as a Caribbean country, ditto Costa Rica or Venezuela. In the case of Haiti and the Dominican Republic, they certainly do, but the time I visited there predated the era of digital photography. So I can write about them endlessly, but I don't have the pictures to back that up. Here's a sneak preview for you. If this exercise in pictorializing my previous travel narrative is successful in its reception, then I just might end up writing Hypertravel 2 to accompany the later trips. 150 countries in 50 years, maybe? See you there. If you like this video and these pictures and this narrative, then please press like and subscribe. It'll cost you nothing, and it'll keep us in closer touch, and it will help me out a lot. I appreciate it. Thank you. Please come back for the next episode.